So today is April 12th, 2023. And can you state your name for me?
Hi, my name is Brissa Miranda.
Awesome. And where's home for you right now, Brissa?
I right now am a student at Queen's University in Charlotte, so I'm currently living in Charlotte.
And where are you from?
I am from Monroe, North Carolina. It's like about 45 minutes out from here.
And so what was your experience during the last 2 or 3 years of the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, so I'm right now a freshman in Queens. So when COVID happened, I was a high schooler. So it was like my sophomore year that I went out for COVID. Actually, funny story. The week before we went out for COVID, we actually were out of school because we had an E. coli break in the water. So it definitely was like a lot longer for us. Like we had like a week off, and then we got an email like, actually, you're just not going to come back from this week, and you're just going to quarantine and take classes online.
Weird. And so what do you remember of like the early days with the original lockdown? Was there any like confusion? What was like your family doing?
Yeah, so a bit confusion just because like there was like a lot of things happening, especially at our school. The grading system became like if you had a good grade and wanted to keep that grade, then you didn't have to continue the course. Yeah, it was like weird. And if you did want to continue the course, whatever work you did, then you could improve your grade. But it was almost like school became like not mandatory, and you kind of just like went for your own like personal like decision.
Yeah, definitely an interesting way of doing that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned going to school, so that was all online, right?
Mhm.
When you went out, you were like, were you wearing masks and everything?
Yeah, so our family like decided to wear the mask because I know that a lot of people around us were like skeptical on masks, but it's for our family, it was just like, well, just put a mask on. It wasn't that like difficult for us, or even like we didn't really question it. It was just for the safety. I did still go out with my friends, but also we were very safe and cautious about it. So socially, I also am more of an introvert, so it didn't really like affect me that much because I still was able to see people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then did your friendships or family relationships change at all because of the pandemic?
Yeah, so like my high school, we were like 50 of us anyway, so it was a lot smaller. So our friend groups, like my intimate friend group was like about like 4 people. So like the other relationship that I had slowly just kind of faded just because they were more like school friends. I didn't really hang out with them outside of school. But the people that I did hang out of school, I still like talk to them every day, at least like via like iMessage and social media. Like I was still in contact. But I did limit how much I would see them just because one of my friends' family, they were more high risk, and she was like one of my best friends. So it did in a way, but also, like I said, I had a smaller group of friends that I talked to every day.
Definitely. And what did you feel like the pandemic have any effect on your like learning experience, or like does it feel weird being in college now? How did it affect that?
Yeah, so like I said, it was almost like not mandatory to go to school. So I was like taking math 3 at the time. And then when I went to take math 4, like that whole last section, I was so confused in. So when it got brought up again, it was almost like having to relearn something I was like already supposed to learn. We were learning about circles. And I'm still to this day, I'm not good with circles and like triangles and all that because I missed that part of it. And then when we did go back, it was online, but it wasn't as like pressuring to learn the material because like a lot of teachers were more lenient with how they taught. So in the math aspect, I would say it affected my learning. Reading and writing was kind of the same, just read your books and whatever.
Yeah. What did you miss most during like that lockdown pandemic time?
Yeah, I like learn better in person. I'm not motivated to do things by myself. I like listening, hearing it, and like seeing it. So for me, I just miss the educational side just because I don't do very well when I'm like completely alone in my studies.
Definitely. Me too. Did it change any of like your normal routines?
I feel like I almost had more free time just because everything was more restricted. You didn't go out as much. I had more free time, which I'm more of a planner. I like to have like my day scheduled. If I don't have anything scheduled, like I probably won't do anything with my day. So it was, for me, I just like a more busy schedule.
Yeah. What were some challenges you faced?
I think some of my challenges I faced was having to see people. Like, I couldn't just be like, oh, like, let's after school, let's hang out. Like, I would actually have to put in the effort to see people and, like, keep up with, like, actually socializing instead of, like, having, like, a destination that everyone, like, sees each other. Like, I would actually have to, like, push myself to, like, be social and maintain a relationship. And as I said, as an introvert, I'm just kind of, it was a little bit more challenging for me. Like, I really had to push myself to, like, keep up with the relationships that I had.
Definitely, that makes sense. What were some good things that you learned from that experience?
I got more time with myself. So during that time, I actually picked up journaling. It was really nice to just, like, sit there and just, like, write, like, what I was feeling during that time. And also, like I said, I had more free time. So I got to work on things that I wanted to do for myself.
Yeah, a little self-development.
Yes.
What was the process like transitioning, like over time as restrictions and recommendations were changing and everything from having mandates to not having mandates and just like the transition of everybody dealing with this as part of life?
Yeah, so I remember I was taking a statistics class through the college side. So my high school was Union County Early College, so we took college classes. So on the South Piedmont side, the restrictions, like, were still, like, mandatory. On the high school, it wasn't. So you, like, got to see, like, the different environment of, like, one being more restricted than the other one. And then eventually the mandate did come down, and then, like, a lot of people, like, jumped right to taking the mask off. But I kind of, like, got in the habit of it, and all of a sudden people coughing was, like, ew. Like, like, people's, like, I don't know, I was just like, that's kind of gross. Like, you're kind of just sneezing in my vicinity. And it wasn't even like, oh, COVID. It was just like, I don't want your germs on me, actually.
Just kind of changed how everybody sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Overall, how would you say, like, the experience of the last few years, how has, like, it shaped you as a person, or kind of how has your life changed?
I would say I had to learn how to learn by myself, especially with, like, online classes. Like, I still take online classes to this day, and I had to, like, learn to, like, motivate myself to, like, not let my grades drop. So in a way, I learned how to, like, educate myself and not, like, rely on someone to teach it for me.
Mm-hmm. And were you working during any of the COVID stuff? What was that like?
I worked, like, not in the peak of COVID, but in the summer, like, about 2 years ago. So, like, 2021. Yeah, I got my first job, and we still, like, had the mandatory mask. So when I first started working, I would still wear a mask. And then later on, it became optional. But the majority of, like, my coworkers, we did wear masks only because it was at a grocery store, and you, like, dealt with, like, a lot of people. I worked as a cashier my first couple months working there, so there was, like, a lot of interactions. So most of us did wear masks. It wasn't too restricting though, because later we got, like, the option to not do it. So.
And what was that experience like, working with, like, in such a customer-based setting around so many people after being at home so much?
Yeah, you would get some customers, normally from, like, an older, like, demographic, that would only go to cashiers that had masks, and they would let you know, like, oh, I only came to you because you're wearing a mask. And so, like, that was, like, one thing that, like, I noticed that, like, depending on their preferences is depending on, like, what aisle, or not aisle, like, register that they would go to check out. So for me, I kind of liked being that person where people felt comfortable going to. That was just me personally. And they were also, like, a lot nicer, just because they, like, would literally be like, thank you for, like, making it a little bit more comfortable for me to, like, shop and not feel like I'm gonna get sick, especially like higher risk people.
That makes sense. Do you have any other, like, stories or experiences from, like, time with COVID that you thought were, like, noteworthy or anything? Or anything funny or weird, or if you remember from them announcing everything?
Yeah, it was, like, funny because I one time was, like, at Target, and we were just, like, going through things, and I was just, like, touching things, and, like, my friends were like, why are you, like, touching everything? And I was like, I like to, like, look at the products just for the, you know, the giggles. And then they were like, don't do that. And then, like, it was something that stuck with me, because then every time I would go, I would just be like, let me not touch anything and just, like, grab what I'm actually gonna buy. And that was just, like, something that, like, I always think about. I'm like, don't touch everything.
It's like a new habit.
Yeah, I'm like, stop touching everything. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's all my questions.
Great.
That was great.
Thank you.